I want you to think about the most powerful person you've ever worked for. Someone who could end your career with a single email. Someone whose name alone opened doors that were permanently closed to everyone else. Someone who walked into a room and made the air feel different. Now imagine that person deciding they wanted your boyfriend. Not because he was exceptional, though he was. Not because they had some deep connection, they didn't. But because she was used to getting exactly what she wanted. And she had looked across the open floor plan of our office one Tuesday afternoon and decided that what she wanted was him. My name is Claire Merritt. I was 28 years old, a mid-level marketing analyst at Vance Consulting Group in downtown Boston. I had a job I loved, an apartment I could barely afford, and a boyfriend named Ethan, who made every ordinary Tuesday feel like something worth remembering. And then our CEO decided she wanted him. What followed was 6 months of the most calculated, deliberate campaign of destruction I have ever witnessed up close. She had money, power, and zero limits. What she didn't have was any idea who she was dealing with. I need to take you back to September 2021. Ethan Cole and I had been dating for 7 months when everything began. We'd met at Vance Consulting the previous February. He was a senior data analyst. I was in marketing, different departments, different floors, but the kind of company small enough that everyone knew everyone eventually. He'd introduced himself at the coffee machine on a Wednesday morning, said he'd read my campaign report, and thought the third section was the best analysis he'd seen from the marketing team in 2 years. I told him that was either a very smooth line or a very low bar. He laughed and said probably both. I kept the relationship quiet for the first few months. Not secret. Vance had no policy against colleagues dating, but private. Neither of us wanted our personal life to become office conversation. By September, we'd stopped being particularly careful about it. We'd have lunch together in the building's cafe, walk to the parking garage at the end of the day, small things that anyone paying attention would notice. Diana Vance paid attention to everything. Diana Vance was 44 years old, the founder and CEO of Vance Consulting Group. She'd built the company from scratch over 15 years into a $180 million consulting firm with offices in Boston, Chicago, and Atlanta. She was brilliant, relentless, and operated with a level of precision that I had always admired from a distance. She was also recently divorced. Her second divorce, I later learned, a fact that the company rumor mill had been quietly processing for most of the summer. The first time I noticed something was off was at the company's fall quarterly meeting in October. Diana presented the Q3 numbers herself, as she always did. But halfway through the presentation, I caught her looking at Ethan. Not glancing, looking. The kind of sustained, deliberate attention that you give something you're evaluating. Ethan was focused on his laptop, taking notes. He didn't notice. I told myself I was being paranoid. I wasn't. It started with professional attention. Diana began pulling Ethan into high-visibility projects, the kind of assignments that got you noticed, that accelerated careers, that came with direct access to senior leadership. Within 3 weeks of that quarterly meeting, he'd been added to 2 executive-level task forces and invited to present his data modeling work directly to the board. Ethan was thrilled. He'd been at Vance for 4 years and had always felt slightly overlooked. This felt like the recognition he'd earned. I was happy for him, genuinely, but I started paying closer attention. The project invitations came directly from Diana's office, bypassing his department's head. The board presentation had been Diana's specific request. And when I quietly looked at who else had been added to these task forces, senior people, directors, people with 15 years of experience, Ethan was the only analyst-level employee in the room. In November, Diana invited him to a working dinner. Just the 2 of them, she said, to discuss a long-term data infrastructure proposal she wanted him to lead. Ethan mentioned it to me casually over dinner the night before, the way you'd mention any work meeting. I asked him where they were going. "Moo," he said. "The steakhouse at the 15 Beacon Hotel." I knew Moo. Basha entrees, candlelit tables, the kind of place that had exactly one purpose, and it wasn't data infrastructure. I didn't say any of that to Ethan. He was excited about the project opportunity. I didn't want to be the person who made him feel like his success was somehow suspicious. But after he left for that dinner, I sat in our apartment for 3 hours thinking about what I'd noticed over the past 6 weeks. The pattern of it, the precision. Diana Vance didn't do anything without intention. Ethan came home at 10:30 p.m., said the dinner had been great, that Diana had outlined a $2 million data infrastructure overhaul she wanted him to lead, with a promotion to Director of Analytics and a salary increase from $94,000 to $165,000. He was glowing. I said, "That's incredible," and I meant it, and I was terrified. 2 days later, Diana called me into her office for the first time in my 3 years at Vance. She was warm, perfectly calibrated warm, the kind that makes you feel seen, without actually revealing anything about the person doing the seeing. She told me my recent campaign work had been strong, that she saw real potential in my trajectory at the company. And then, almost as an aside, she mentioned that the marketing team was being restructured, that my current role would be evolving, that she wanted to make sure I was positioned for the changes ahead. It felt like a compliment. It felt like a warning. I wasn't sure which one it was supposed to be. Walking back to my desk, I understood something clearly for the first time. Diana Vance wasn't just interested in Ethan. She was managing me. December arrived and the pressure became less subtle. Ethan was spending more time in Diana's orbit. Late meetings, strategy sessions, a 2-day off-site in New York that she'd specifically requested he attend. He came back from New York quieter than usual. I asked how it went. He said, "Fine, great, productive." Then he said, "She told me I'm wasted at my current level, that someone with my capabilities shouldn't have a ceiling." I asked him what he thought about that. He looked at me carefully. "I think she's probably right about my capabilities. I'm not sure what she wants in return for recognizing them." That was the first time he said it out loud. The thing we'd both been circling. "What did she say exactly?" I asked. He was quiet for a moment. Then she asked me if I was happy. Personally, not professionally. Personally. I put down my fork. "What did you say?" I said yes, that I was very happy. He reached across the table and took my hand. "Claire, I know what's happening. I'm not an idiot." I exhaled slowly. "Okay. I just don't know what to do about it. She's my CEO. I can't exactly." "I know," I said. "I know." In January, Diana restructured the marketing team. My role was reclassified. Same title, reduced scope. Moved to a newly created reporting structure that placed me 3 steps further from any meaningful project visibility. My salary remained the same. My career trajectory did not. I understood exactly what it was. A demotion disguised as reorganization, the kind that's almost impossible to fight because nothing on paper looks explicitly wrong. I documented everything, saved every email, every org chart revision, every project reassignment with timestamps, sent copies to my personal email from my work account. I didn't know yet what I'd do with it, but I knew enough to build a record. In February, Ethan told me Diana had made the offer formal. Director of Analytics, $165,000, a seat at the executive table. He'd been given 2 weeks to decide. That same week, I was called into HR. They told me my position was being eliminated, effective in 30 days. The HR director's name was Patricia Halle. She'd been at Vance for 11 years. She looked genuinely uncomfortable sitting across from me. She explained the elimination of my role as a business decision, part of the ongoing marketing restructuring, nothing performance-related. My work had been excellent. Here was a severance package. Here was a reference letter already signed by Diana. The severance was exactly the legal minimum, 4 weeks. The reference letter was 2 sentences. I read it twice. Then I looked at Patricia and said very calmly, "Patricia, I need you to tell me honestly. Was my position eliminated because of my relationship with Ethan Cole?" She didn't answer, but her expression did. I took the folder, thanked her, and walked back to my desk. I called Ethan from the stairwell. told him what had just happened. There was a long silence on the other end. Then he said, "I'll be right there." He came down to the lobby 20 minutes later. We sat in the cafe across the street, and I laid out everything I'd been documenting for 2 months. The timeline, the pattern, the way my role had been quietly dismantled in parallel with his advancement. The fact that my termination came the same week he'd been given a deadline on Diana's offer. Ethan listened to all of it without interrupting. When I finished, he said, "She fired you to make room. She thinks if you're gone, I'll take the promotion and move on." "Yes," I said. He was quiet for a moment. Then, "She miscalculated." He went back upstairs. At 4:47 p.m. that same afternoon, Ethan submitted his resignation. No notice period negotiation. No counter-offer conversation. A single resignation letter, effective immediately, citing a conflict of professional ethics he was unwilling to overlook. Diana called him into her office within minutes of receiving it. I know, because he told me everything that night. She'd been composed at first, asked him to reconsider, outlined again what she was offering, the title, the salary, the trajectory, said she hoped his personal situation wasn't clouding his professional judgment. He told her his professional judgment was the clearest it had ever been. She dropped the composure, told him he was making the biggest mistake of his career, that no one walked away from an opportunity like this, that she could make things very difficult for him in this industry. He said, "I'm sure you could, but I won't be the kind of person who lets you." And he walked out. My last day at Vance was a Friday in March 2022. I spent my final week finishing every project I'd been assigned, writing handover notes more thorough than anything anyone had asked for, and saying genuine goodbyes to colleagues I'd worked alongside for 3 years. Diana didn't acknowledge my departure. That Monday, Ethan and I both started looking. He found a role first, Senior Director of Data Strategy at Meridian Partners, a direct competitor of Vance Consulting. Salary $180,000, more than Diana had offered. He started in April. I took longer. 7 weeks of applications, interviews, uncertainty. The kind of stretch that tests everything: your confidence, your patience, your ability to believe the right thing is coming when there's no evidence of it yet. In May, I received an offer from Harlow & Reed, a boutique marketing consultancy in Cambridge. Head of Digital Strategy, my own team. Salary, $30,000 more than I'd made at Vance. I accepted on a Thursday afternoon, sitting at our kitchen table. Ethan opened a bottle of wine we'd been saving for something worth celebrating. I think we both cried a little, the good kind. But the story doesn't end there. In August 2022, a former Vance employee, a woman named Sandra Okafor, who had left the company the previous year, filed a wrongful termination lawsuit against Vance Consulting Group and Diana Vance personally. Sandra alleged that her termination had been retaliatory, connected to her rejection of Diana's personal advances. Her attorney reached out to former employees for supporting documentation. I had 2 months of meticulous records. Emails, org, chart revisions, timestamps, my own termination paperwork. A documented pattern of professional dismantlement that preceded my firing by exactly 60 days. I submitted everything. I also connected Sandra's attorney with 3 other former employees who'd had their own experiences they'd never had the standing to address alone. The case settled out of court in February 2023. The terms were confidential. But Diana Vance stepped down as CEO of Vance Consulting Group in March 2023, citing a desire to pursue other opportunities. The company appointed an interim CEO from within the existing leadership team. I heard through a former colleague that Diana had moved to New York, started a new venture. Whether she'd changed or simply found a new stage for the same behavior, I genuinely don't know. What I know is this: she looked across an open floor plan one Tuesday afternoon and decided that what she wanted was attainable. That money and power and the ability to restructure an org chart could reorder someone's heart. She was wrong. And the documentation I'd been building since January, not out of revenge, but out of a simple refusal to let the record be rewritten, became the thing that mattered most in the end. Ethan and I got engaged in December 2022. The ring is simple, nothing flashy. He knows I don't need flashy. We got married the following October in a small ceremony outside Boston. 40 people. The kind of wedding where you actually talk to everyone there. I think about Diana sometimes, not with anger that passed faster than I expected, more with a kind of clarity. Power is a remarkable thing. It can open almost every door. It can restructure organizations and rewrite career trajectories, and make things very difficult for people who have less of it than you do. But it cannot make someone choose you, and it cannot erase a paper trail built by someone patient enough to keep one. What darkness kept. The truth always comes out. Subscribe if this story stayed with you. A new story every day.